Welcome back, everybody, for another episode in our hashtag BKOT series. We continue to support and provide guidance for today's accounting firm. And so we're very excited to have with us Philippa Haynes coming from the UK. And today's conversation is going to be based on, finding, obtaining, getting, and working with your ideal client. So, but first, Philippa, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us. Please tell us all about yourself.
Well, first of all, hi, Chris, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be speaking to you and the audience as well. So my business is Insight 101. It's a brand and marketing consultancy that works only with accountants. And I support them to stand out. And when I say stand out, I mean to inspire and attract their ideal client who is valuable, who wants a relationship, who isn't going to be that time waster, but somebody who genuinely wants a business relationship. So that's what I do. And I do that in multiple ways, but essentially I want accountants to be able to talk directly to their ideal client in their marketing. And I actually think that that is the number one enabler for a firm, but also the number one obstacle as well, because it's really, really difficult to do. But I think once the sort of back office has been sorted and all of that tech, and you've got your, all of your software and all of those processes, actually it's about finding that right partner, that right prospect who's going to help you to build and grow a practice that is controlled. Control growth is what it's all about. So hopefully that gives you a quick insight into how I spend my day.
Yeah, no, this is exciting because what you do is very important, and it's because I've spoken with accountants myself over the last 6 years now, and every time I get a Calendly invite, right, the firm name is always like the last three names, and it's like Johnson and Phillips and Ted CPA, and I think branding is so important. I think it starts with the name, starts with your image, and then starts also with finding the right client. So I completely agree. Excited to learn more. Now, how did you get this business started? I mean, were you working as in the accounting industry, or how can you tell us that backstory?
Sure. So my first couple of clients were accountants. It just happened that way. And I worked with one particular accountant on their brand and rewrote their website, changed the look and feel and their message, and obviously made sure that the ideal client was front and center of that. And as a result, they actually sold that business. Somebody directly contacted them and said, I really love the brand, what you stand for. It's a really strong business. And so she went into discussion around that. And I guess that was a bit of an ego stroke for me. But sure. I've got my mission really is to support accountants to get what they deserve, which is recognition and positive recognition. I think many people think that accountants are very generic, very vanilla color, and are pretty boring. And I don't say that, but that's what people say to me all the time. And so it's my mission to say, actually, that's not true. What an accountant does is pretty similar across the board, but how they do it and the service that they provide and the people and the personality and the DNA behind it is very different. So that's really why I started. And I guess I like a challenge. I've never been in the accounting sector, but after 5 years, I feel like I'm just really beginning to drill down into, what the accounting sector can really be. So that's really why it was just happened, really.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that because I'm in the same boat as yourself. I don't have an accounting background, but I work with CPA firms and helping them find, staff out in India. And never in my life did I say, I can't wait to grow up and work with a company out in India. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
However, what I do when working with clients and the thrill of them seeing this succeed and adding staff, it's why I do the job. It's amazing to see this all come to fruition, from the nervous client in the beginning to when they hire their first staff. It's a journey that's an experience. It's an amazing experience to be a part of.
Sure.
And
yeah. So, my background is very corporate, sort of the blue chip company background. And I've worked very much in insight and strategy, which has helped to guide the business, whether it be marketing, brand, supply chain, all of those good things. But what it enabled me to do was really drill down into the essence of that brand and that business. And what I've really enjoyed doing over the last few years is taking that experience and really overlaying it onto the accounting sector and saying, do you know what, actually, the market is competitive, the market is dynamic. And really, it's up to you to stand up and be counted. And that's really what I'm all about. And it's interesting. I have so many conversations with accountants who all want to grow, but we've all sat in that boardroom where somebody goes, well, we want to grow by X%, and everybody nods and says, yes, that's a great idea. Now, I've sat in that boardroom as well, and I've always been the one to say, but how are you going to get there? And of course, one of the fundamentals is about having a marketing presence. So what I try to do is to enable those firms who have real aspiration to grow to actually say there is a way forward. If we get this ideal client nailed, everything else falls out of it, which sounds really kind of a sweeping statement. But if you think about it, it answers the question about what you should be saying on your website, what it should look like, what your social media should be all about, where you should be talking, networking, etc., because you need to be talking to that ideal client in the right language, in the right tone of voice. It's, saying the right things. And once you've got your business up and running, what you really want are the right people through the door who you enjoy working with. Nobody wants to set up their own practice and then be told what to do, or work with time wasters, or have a phone call where somebody picks up the phone and goes, so how much is it? Or so why you aren't accountants all the same? What you really want is for somebody to come to you and go, I just really like what you do. It really spoke to me. Tell me more. And so then the accountant isn't on the back foot, but has actually taken control of that dialogue and has said, great that you feel that way. This is what we stand for. This is what we do. This is how we do it. So having that real confidence to have that conversation, which sometimes isn't always the case. I think accountants find it quite difficult to have conversations like that, or relationships beyond the numbers. But being able to identify that ideal and kind of go, look, we're like you, we kind of match, that makes it so much easier for you then to have that relationship where it's almost a done deal because you get on so well.
how does a new client start with you? Is it just kind of reviewing their marketing, reviewing their where does one get started with you, and how do you kind of identify too if this client is going to work out and be all in? How do you know?
Well, I have a specific discovery call, which is for anybody to book in. And we talk about 3 pillars there. We talk about the ideal client, we talk about their USP, and we talk about their overall confidence in their business. So USP is unique selling point for those who aren't aware of that. And those three pillars are incredibly important as identifiers for how successful your marketing is already, and how you're able to sort of talk about yourself and what makes you different. So after that, it's a diagnostic conversation, really. But then from that call, we can put in place there's an ideal client program, which we go through, which pulls that out and allows you to go through the process. But there's also two specific programs, which are the brand unique program and the brand discovery program, which is for larger businesses. So brand unique is for solo business owners or small practices. And those really drill down into the essence of what you are all about, why you came to accounting, what your offer is, your USP. So we really drill down into those fundamentals and come up with a solution. So I'm not a coach, I am a consultant. So I listen to what you're saying, sort of internalize that and come back and go, I think it's about this. And so many times I get the response from a client who goes, wow, I just cannot believe you've got me. And somebody said the other day, what's your superpower? And I said, I can probably know you better than you know yourself in five minutes, because I can hear what you're saying and I can kind of read behind the lines. So we go into all of the rigorous marketing piece and the brand, but essentially what you get is a brand blueprint, which gives you all of the answers you need and all of the input so that you could give it to a website developer or a social media consultant and just say, that's us. That is our business, and most suppliers who receive that go, oh my God, I wish everybody gave me that. So that's how it works. We develop websites ourselves. We can kind of turn what we do into sort of tangible marketing assets too. But the fundamentals is for me to get under the skin of that business and to find out what it is that really makes them unique. Now, I have been challenged so many times to say, how can an accountant be unique, or how can it's not possible? And I usually say everybody's unique in some way, shape or form. It's just about finding out what your beliefs are, your motivations, how you approach something, and that's really the sweet spot.
Yeah, you need to find out what do you like to do, what is your core strengths and values, and so it's like a mindset. And when you're ready, when you're in the right position and place and you're focused, then things will take off. And I find that clients are speaking to a client 5 years ago, many calls that I had, if it was quite obvious that the clients were running the firm. And because we were trying to develop a workflow, and they're like, well, this client does this client does this. And I was like, okay, like who's running the firm here? Now, 5 years later, that's not the case. If not, many clients are firing clients or grading their clients, A, B, C, D, and they're not putting up with it. And so, and kudos to them. I think that's the right way, the right approach, because you don't want every client, you want the right client.
No, and sometimes, finding that ideal client, they are already sitting there in front of you. So I think a lot of accountants use that sort of methodology where they do segment their portfolio into A to D. And I would say, looking at those, A clients, what is it that pulls them all together? And it's possibly the way they work, the attitude to their finances, the type of person they are, the attitude. And so it may just be staring you in the face that actually these are the sorts of people, they cluster in this way. I think one of the questions I have a lot around the ideal client is people jump to this idea of niching and they get very, very frightened of it, saying, well, I don't want to just kind of talk to this person or that person. And that's absolutely fine. I think a niche really is about finding the type of client that you want, whether it's in a particular sector, whether it's a particular stage in their business, whether it's a particular attitude, belief. It's about enjoying a certain type of client. I was speaking to somebody today who's a client of mine, and he was saying, actually, his clients, the ones he loves, are those that are so passionate and so complete. They have a real strong sense of purpose. And so what they do is highly creative and really out there. And what he loves to do is to place the foundations underneath. So he's always looking for those who are very unique in their approach, who looking for different types of businesses that just look at a different angle. So for him, it makes perfect sense. But he was like, oh yeah, actually I do go for those. I said, well, you need to talk to them. You need to make sure that when you put your website together, that you're actually talking to those people so that they know that you are their ideal. And there's nothing more powerful than when you pick up the phone and go, actually, you're our ideal client. Most prospects kind of go, that, it feels good.
Yeah. No, they're proud of that. And that is a perfect way to get this off the ground, is working with your current client base, right? Folks just sometimes, where do we start? How do we get this started? Well, your good clients, but you, like you said, you haven't really figured out why they are the ideal client. And when you do, then you start attracting more of those type. But everyone will know their ideal client, but they just may not know why and how they got that. And I think when they do, it's a revelation, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I don't think ideal client is, the turnover, all of those kind of stats. Your A segment that you earn most from or least from, whatever, it may not necessarily be the type of client that you really enjoy working with. You've got to look at it with, a pair of sort of kid gloves and really kind of pull it apart and say who are really valuable. And maybe that is just, how business works, but who are those that the whole team enjoys working with, and nobody minds if the phone goes. So that is the definition, but actually finding those people and being able to court them and attract them obviously takes care and attention, which is where Insight 101 comes in.
Now, are you working just with the owner, the partner, or is everyone involved with this? Or is that the responsibility kind of the owner to get everyone involved? Because whether you have 2 people in your firm or 200, you've got to have everyone on the same page, right?
Yeah, it's really important. So for me, something that looks and feels great and stays on the bookshelf is and is never used is a failure. So everybody has to really be moved by it and excited by it. So yeah, if you have a team, then the way it normally works is that we talk to a cross section of individuals at various levels for us to be able to understand what drives them, how they would describe the culture, how they work, all of those key questions that we pull together a very specific kind of interview guide, that we look at the rational and the emotional there. So my background is market research as well. I'm a moderator, so I'm able to sort of drill down into people's, what they say, the language they use, their behavior, all of those good things. And I really insist on getting the team involved so that they come out and just go, because what you want is when you see, say, a new website has been done, for instance, you want people to look at that and go, I had a part in that. And that quote there, I recognize as mine, so it's that idea of ownership, really.
Yeah, no,
Which
I
is really
agree.
critical.
When because now you have this team that's behind you, everyone's on the same page, all working with your ideal client, and that it's going to create a loyal workforce, because everyone is responsible or accountable for something that's all part of the firm's vision and goal and mission.
Exactly.
And I think folks lose track of that. It's all about not too much numbers and analysis, but it's like, take a step back. Who is our client? Why are they our client? And folks aren't doing that, and they need to. There's so much business out there, right? And there's staffing shortages occurring. So you really need to drill down. Otherwise, this burnout and work-life balance won't be there. So to me, it's very important to understand who you are as a firm, right? So before we wrap up, I appreciate you coming on again today. But before we wrap up, any final words or an expert tip to provide the audience for today?
Well, I mean, one of the most powerful tips, I think, is for accountants to go and have a look at their client list, just very briefly, and sort of pull out a couple, and obviously have a think about that. But if they don't feel able to do that, I always say the best insight you can get are from those clients that you think are really good clients. Ring them up, pick up the phone, send them an email and say, do you know what? I just want to know what it is about us that really resonated. So sometimes you can't see it yourself because you're so close, but actually doing an interview with a client and just getting some feedback is really powerful stuff. I asked, I spoke to somebody the other day, and they were really confused and didn't know where to start. And I said, well, you've talked about this one particular client who you really like a lot. Get on the phone and see if there are any light bulb moments there. And of course there were. Now, sometimes for some accountants, it's a difficult ask because, doing something beyond numbers and not having a conversation about the accounts, it's not always comfortable. But if you feel able, that is possibly the most potent thing you can do. Or ask a team member, what is it about that, why do they love working there? What is it that singles it out? So do a bit of your own research, I think, and then hopefully you'll have a better insight into what you deliver and how you deliver it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's any type of change within the firm. It's easy to start with your top clients, and it sounds simple, but you probably never have reached out to them, like you said, and not just discuss numbers and analysis. Like, you know what, Tim, why do you like us? And they will appreciate it because it's a compliment to them, and so they would be willing to share kind of the insight, and then boom, the light bulb goes off, and then you work from there. So absolutely agree.
And one of the ways of getting as much as possible out of that conversation is to ask why. Because if you ask somebody about why they like you, initially they'll come up with something quite rational. But if you're so why is that? What made you think that? Why? And you'll get to a point where they're so fed up of the question why that they'll come out with something that really is the true answer, that sort of delves into that emotional side. I mean, obviously you don't want to annoy your client, but what I'm saying is, don't take that first answer at it's probably quite a surface level answer. So try drilling down a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, again, Philippa, thank you for taking time out, and check out
Welcome.
Insight 101. We'll have the link at the bottom here. And thanks again for the audience. Thanks for listening in, and we'll be back soon with a new episode. For now, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris. Goodbye.